Already killed one hostage.
This channel is reserved for emergency calls only.
Lady, do I sound like I'm ordering a pizza?
He's inside? Who is he? Who are you then? You are most troublesome for a security guard.
Sorry, wrong guess, huh? Would you like to go for double jeopardy?
Do you really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Yippee-ki-yay, mother. You just destroyed a building. I am in charge of this situation.
Well, I got some bad news for you. From up here, that look like you're in charge of Jack.
He is alone, he is tired, and he hasn't seen dipping squat from anybody down here.
Hey, pal, how you feeling?
All things being equal, I'd rather be in Philadelphia.
And you have it.
Only John can drive somebody that crazy.
He's an easy guy to like
Come out to the coast, we'll get together, have a few laughs.
and a hard man to kill.
Sam, how did this come to pass?
About 3 weeks ago, it was 3 weeks ago to the day actually, I watched Die Hard with some new friends of mine on my degree who hadn't seen it before, and I posted about it on my Instagram story, and we voice noted about it at length.
And then I'm now remembering this because I was waiting for a woman to say whether or not she was going to go on a date. And so I was anxiously waiting for this response, forgot that I'd messaged you about Die Hard. And then I was with friends and I was like, oh my God, she's responded. And it was you saying, yeah, I really like the part where she uses the surname.
It's that was one of those moments when you replied to me being like, I really wish you were a woman. Well, you often find sort of real microcosms of friendships and relationships at points, and that was definitively one of ours. We've been friends for something like 8 years.
The last time you were on the show, Sam, was for, this is a while ago now. Well, technically, it was for the second annual Quizathon.
A one-time champion.
Yeah, this was the one that you did lose. Oh no, you won. No,
Yeah.
Yes, you won the second annual Quizathon. Will won the first.
Yes, and we had a rematch in the final.
You had a rematch in the second annual quiz. I think we're due another Quizathon.
I'm well up for another Quizathon.
I
Always.
love quizzes.
We both love quizzes. It was why we became such good friends.
Is it time that I take part?
The answer is almost certainly yes, but logistically, I don't know how that comes about.
The problem is that nobody will have the devotion like me to record across 8 different episodes, plan everybody, prepare.
And nobody would ever beat you either. It would be a run horse before we've even started.
You could do like a chase situation.
Oh, if we did a chase situation would be very, very interesting, actually.
Like
If
a
we had-
movie.
Yeah, 3-4 people on a team. You know what? We've started something here. There's a burgeon. There's a blastocyst of quiz.
Unfortunately, that won't come out into the new year. And as a matter of fact, there was the possibility of this coming out either in February or next December. And I've gone for next December because that could change. But I want to open with this. I'm going to set a 1-minute timer, Sam.
God.
1 minute timer set.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about this for more than a minute. To be honest, I don't even know why I brought it up. I cannot abide people who say that this isn't a Christmas movie. You're not clever, you're not funny, you're not original, and also you're stupid. It's it's like, how do you even make that argument with any I don't get it. What a stupid thing to say.
Christmas is a central point of the film. It's a central theme. It's a central guiding narrative aspect of the entire film.
It ends on Let It Snow. Even in the final 5 minutes of the film, when he is preparing to kill Hans or whatever, there is a zoom in on wrapping paper, and there is even in the score, ding 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 ding,
Jingle
ding.
bell. There's a jingle bell because he tapes using Christmas tape from Christmas decorations that is in Nakatomi Plaza. Is it done? Am I done?
The time is done. But the point is, I just don't know how you can. It's a stupid argument.
You won't be able to see this properly, but you can hear.
Oh, that is wonderful.
I got this Christmas that says Nakatomi Plaza Christmas Party 1988.
Oh, well, now I know what I want.
A hug?
Wow, that too. I mean, this is the problem with doing it a year in advance, because we're no longer friends.
One of us could be dead.
Yeah, I've said this before to readers, that because obviously I schedule everything ahead and then upload it, and it's on scheduled uploads. What if I die and the lasting memory of me is like 4 months later, sort of P.S. I love you style? Me, and what would be the worst? What would be the most random one? A scheduled upload of there's no real funny ones. Some good episodes coming up. But I'd gladly do Boogie Nights again. Should be a Boogie Nights podcast instead. I know when we did Misery that was by chance that you'd seen Misery the week before.
Yes.
This is a favourite of yours. This wasn't the first time you'd seen Die Hard.
This is very much a favourite of mine. I like to cast myself in that echelon of, person who both loves action films and loves Christmas films and likes making Die Hard a facet of their personality, much to the annoyance of other people.
It's not annoying. It's very likable. Maybe not as a trait, but
it's also, Die Hard is the only film I've seen more than once this year.
Yeah, I watched because we forgot. This got scheduled and then I cancelled it, but then you were like, "Oh, is it still on?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, it can be, it can be." And I just rewatched it then, despite watching it in part once fully this Christmas season, and then like 2 other nights where me and my dad just ended up randomly watching on ITV for the final 20 minutes.
Yeah, I watched it, as I said, 3 weeks ago today with some friends from my university for the first time, and then me and my family watched it together on Boxing Day or Christmas Eve, one of them, and then me and my dad ended up catching the last hour of Die Hard with a Vengeance on ITV4 the other night. So,
are you a Die Hard trilogy person?
Yes, I am. I believe in Die Hard as a standalone film.
Yeah.
And then I believe in the existence of 2 and With a Vengeance as a trilogy. And I don't consider the other 2 to be films.
No. Yeah, no. All the better for it. I don't know if it's controversial, and this is a conversation for a Die Hard 2 and 3 episode, but I'm kind of like, I'm all in on Die Hard 2, and then Die Hard 3 kind of tepid, not tepid for me, but like Die Hard 3 goes to ridiculous levels that I don't actually enjoy. I think it gets over the top. And when we go back to Die Hard, especially, or even Die Hard 2, if you forget about the ejector seat, these are very, very intentionally, I'll say it, realistic films.
I think part of the reason why I love this one so much is I found that my own criteria for thinking a film is good is a film that knows what it wants to be and does it.
Oh, yeah.
Regardless of whether it is a children's animation or the first Pirates of the Caribbean or Die Hard or Moonlight, like if a film knows what it wants to be and does it, it's almost always ends up being a very good film, a very watchable and enjoyable film. And this is a film that is so tightly wrapped in what it wants to be that it could never have not been good when I think about it.
There's a confluence of different things that lead to Die Hard becoming the success that it is. In that, I don't know where to start, but it's one of I see Die Hard in a Halloween tradition, in a Jaws thing, where it's that perfect original that strives in its simplicity, and then there are sequels of varying degrees of quality that attempt to recreate the qualities of the first one, but fail in the intrinsic thing of Jaws, Halloween, this is a one and done prospect. And that is the brilliance of it. That is the plot intricacy. That's the narrative. It's a one and done. It's the Christmas party. And you know, I love Die Hard 2 as much as anybody else. And I love him going, the same shit happened to the same guy twice. You know, it's really fun. But there is something about that. Well, let's talk about these things that could have gone wrong. This movie is based on a book called Nothing Lasts Forever, which is a sequel to a book called The Detective, which was made into a film with Frank Sinatra. And so contractually, they did have to offer this to Frank Sinatra, who would have been in his late 60s. And I don't think would have been very, very politically correct with Mr. Tanagi.
Oh, God.
You run this place, you know, he'd just be smoking and it wouldn't work.
Frank, that's not the line. I'll put in my own line.
Yeah. I do enjoy I got a DVD of Frank Sinatra live in Japan, and he does this thing where anywhere he goes, he'll change the song Chicago, and I think that DVD has the most shoehorned in example, where he's like, "This is my kind of town. Okinawa is my kind," and it's really, really forced. I do enjoy it, but so they did offer it to him. In the original novel, it's his daughter, which would have worked. I'm sure there's a world where that movie exists. Commando, for one, has that.
And she still has the surname Gennaro, I believe, because he's still separated from his wife.
Yeah, this is where speaking of Commando, this is where we come across our first thing that could have gone wrong, in that this movie was immediately offered to Stallone, to Schwarzenegger, and that for me is just that absolute sliding door of this movie works as I genuinely, I love, and I've said this to Will before, I love plays where it starts and it's a really clean living room, and then by the end of it, there's a cake and the smashed wine and everything's wrecked. And for me, the version of that in human form is John, and then that final and Holly's reaction, Jesus, and he's covered in blood, and it's completely believable. And I also, the double-edged sword of that is, I completely believe that he's still alive.
Yeah, and there's an element to which other films, there's once again a reason why it stood the test of time and stands out in its era, because a lot of the other films from the time that do star Stallone, Schwarzenegger, Dolph Lundgren, whoever you want, they don't actually have the well-written human side that this film has, which necessitates an actual performance from its main character, as opposed to what in 88 all of these other action stars were, which means that you are right, in that alternate universe in which it's one of those doing this is a film that, you know, we'd maybe review on this show laughing, you know, hysterically about.
I like Predator.
Oh no, I think Predator's great, but only when Arnie starts covering himself in mud. The first hour and a half is boring as shit.
I completely disagree. Well, okay. Well, we'll save that for the Predator part. The wonderful John McTiernan again. But yeah, no, there is that. He's balding. He's fresh off Moonlighting. He's a sitcom star, and yeah, and also I think there's just something about, nothing sticks out to me more than in Predator, which for the most part is a sci-fi horror film, than hey, stick around. It doesn't work. And for me, there is something here of I completely believe John talking to himself, and none of the. I mean, I know obviously we get in the future we get to him, throwing the lighter at the bird at the plane, and we get the bazooka, yippee-ki-yay motherfuckers. But the first yippee-ki-yay motherfucker in Die Hard history is so thrown away and is just
Yeah.
nothing.
Because it's him riffing on the cowboy bit, right? And just being like, he's written as a wise, cracking, emotionally flawed yet emotionally there dickhead, right? So when he's having a bravado talking match, because that's once again something that makes this film so perfect, which is that your protagonist and your antagonist are essentially just having a debate for an hour and a half.
I mean, we love bits and sketches. John McClane would love a bit.
Oh, he's a riffing legend. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker, as he just goes around the corner as some henchmen come out of a lift.
I mean, what is Bill Clay but an improv comedian trying out a new character?
Bill Clay.
Bill Clay. Oh God. Maybe my most quoted. I adore. Right, let's talk about the confluence of good things. John McTiernan, fresh off Die Hard. That's a lie. Fresh off Predator. Sorry. And one of his big things was, and I don't know at what stage this came into it, but he wanted a rewrite of the script, and he wanted the terrorists to be likable, and enjoyable, because we're spending so much time with them, and it's not and the balancing act of us loving hands, of us, finding everybody and enjoying the little bits of comedy and humor while still finding them an absolutely valid threat. It's a real balancing act that, I mean, numerous. I mean, you only have to look at Jason Momoa in the last Fast and Furious movie where it's like, oh yeah, he's going to be fun this time. And it's just ridiculous and not likable. And it is that fine line.
Well, I think part of the reason that it comes from it as well, and I think this is probably also because it's based on a novel, so the ideas, the meta ideas behind it are pre-existing, but part of it comes from the fact that because they're not, as we may get onto, they're not actually terrorists.
Yes, who said anything about us being terrorists?
They're a political organization, meaning that at a certain point, there are people who are going to. You can agree with everything they're doing and the methods that they're using to obtain it. Because it's a political thing, everything that the bad guys do in the film is actually just as legitimate as what your main character and action hero is doing to save like a lot of innocent bystanders. And I think that's where the depth in those characters comes in. And once again, what makes it such a wonderful film is the fact that we know these are the bad guys, we want them to lose, and yet everything about them is legitimate as being on screen, and you are there and you are listening to what they're saying and you're understanding why they're doing everything.
And you've got also the mechanics of a heist movie in their plots, in that and a heist movie narrative is just intrinsically easy to root for. And the minute they cut the power and the minute O to Joy blasts, you immediately go, Hans, you son of a bitch, you did it. Even
you wanted a miracle, I give you the FBI. It's like the most triumphant line in the entire thing.
I remember Silence of the Lambs. We were talking about Silence of the Lambs, and there is there is that thing, of course, Hannibal's great escape scene. And I mean, and Hannibal is very similar to me in the Hans category of, and also, I mean, in the Annie Wilkes category. I mean, I will never forget me about it. I love Annie, and you and Will just repeatedly reminded me, yeah, Tom, she kills kids. But there is that great Hannibal escape in the back half of Silence of the Lambs where you end up rooting for this cannibal and you're like, oh my God, he's going to do it. He's going to do it. And then, the minute where he pulls the face off and you're like, yay! And you're like,
oh, yes, he's wearing another man's face.
Yes, he did it. And I recently showed. I did a Die Hard in the sense that I've watched it twice, Silence of the Lambs twice in like 2 months. Because I showed it with one woman, and then and then another. No, with one woman, and then there was a
Rotating
group.
cast of anonymous ladies.
That's how I find out if they can stay, is if they like Silence of the Lambs.
I want you to know, by the way, that's just you having like similar values and enjoying the same things, which happens in every relationship.
Do you? Okay, let's go, because the moral of my story is that everybody loves Silence of the Lambs and everybody fell for everything. But Silence of the Lambs is such an osmosis movie, and everybody knows, Good morning, Clarice, and everybody knows everything.
The lamb stopped screaming.
How was it watching Die Hard with your group of friends? How much did they know going in? How much were they surprised? Did they enjoy it? Because I do think that this is a perfectly aged, like, no issue. I mean, I've got a couple of changes, but like no issues beast. Did it still work?
I'd say largely yes. So when I was with my friends, two of them had never seen it, and one of them said he'd seen it when he was about 10. So, 15 or so years ago. And when I watched it with my family, my mum had never seen it before. And sort of wanted to watch it because of how much, I talk about my love for it. And you know what, as a rule of thumb, across what is a diverse group of people there, students in their early to mid 20s, my mother, a woman in her 60s from Yorkshire, one of my friends is Australian, it across the diverse range of people in there, everybody thought it was still brilliant at the point at which they were interacting with it. Whether they'd love it as much as I did, for example, I think it's by the by, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
There was one point I remember one of my friends just like turning to me, probably about 45 minutes in, and just being like, this is such a well-shot film. And I was just like, yeah.
Well, it's shot by Jan de Bont, who would go on himself as a director to make Speed.
Another film I watched this year.
Speed's great, yeah. He also shot the wonderful Basic Instinct as well, which also has incredible cinematography.
Well, yeah, one of the most iconic pieces of cinematography of all time. So, no, but you can tell.
Are you asking me how much I jack off? Because I do a lot. What a film. I love
it. And I love Speed. So
Speed's great. Yeah, no.
You know what? Sorry, we will come back. But when I watched Speed probably about 10 years ago, and then I watched it again earlier this year. I never realized Sandra Bullock was the most beautiful woman ever.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah. Well, there's the whole thing in A Time to Kill. Have you ever watched A Time to Kill?
I haven't, unfortunately.
It's John Grisham thriller. Hasn't aged as well as some of the films that we're talking about now. It's Samuel L. Jackson, and it's like the Deep South, and it becomes like a racial thing because he kills his daughter's rapists.
Right.
And you'll have seen the clip.
Yes.
Yes, I killed them, and I hope they burn in hell.
Yeah.
But in that, you've got a whole sort of love triangle thing between Matthew McConaughey and Sandra Bullock, but they've hired Ashley Judd and his wife, who Ashley Judd in 1996, maybe the actual most beautiful woman of all time. And she's got this wonderful little blonde bob, and but she's not a very well-served wife character, which I'm great at my job. This isn't my job. Brings me back to Die Hard, because I think you want to talk about aging like a fine wine. How incredible, A, is Bobby Bedelia as Holly, and also how much work do they do in the script to not have her just be a hostage and on the sidelines? Because narratively, she's not going to sneak away and find a gun. But they do absolutely so much. And there isn't an element of me that crosses my mind of, oh, this is a dated 80s wife character.
Yeah. And once again, one part of the reasons why this is such a spectacular film is that its characters are so well developed, so well rounded, and they remain true to themselves throughout the entire thing. You would not have, once again, in the 1980s, I know things have developed. It wasn't the 20s, were it? But still, you wouldn't have a woman leaving her husband to travel across the entire country to become, was she chief
She's second in command. She's second in command to Takagi.
Like this tremendous worldwide organization. You wouldn't have a woman who does that, who is willing to do that, who's able to do that, take her kids, everything, go, and then would sit on the sidelines whilst this is happening and be the damsel in distress. And I know we get there in the end, but it's not that isn't what her character is. Her character is getting up and being like, and unless you like things messy out there, I recommend you start taking people to the bathroom. You know, telling this incredibly dangerous individual, a man who is, you know, presented as a terrorist, as, you know, willing to kill. She's going up and just standing up to him, and if anything, making him look a bit of a fool.
Which idiot put you in charge? You did.
Yes, you did when you killed my boss. It's so, and I do think that having Holly be the character she is, and also, once again, the reason the entire thing happens, the entire thing revolves around Holly, if we're being honest. She's the only reason John's there.
Also, underrated quality of Die Hard 2 and Die Hard 3 is that they never like make her happy wife. She goes back to John after Die Hard and they all live happy families. Die Hard 2, she's flying back still from LA back and forth. And Die Hard 3, she's left him. So
well, it's that bit where she's like shouting on the phone, just like, you always do this.
And also, another thing, and it's not that Bonnie Bedelia isn't truly, truly beautiful, but 80s movie, this could have been a chance to hire a model like they do in all of these movies, big boobed model, and just make it a nothing character and have a possibility for, you know, to get quote unquote more men in seats or whatever. But again, Bonnie Bedelia is completely believable as a mature middle-aged woman.
Yeah, something my mum said when we were watching it when she first saw Holly was like, "Oh, I used to have that hair," which I just think is an interesting point, kind of on how perfectly timely the, you know, that element of the film is, the costuming and the timely nature of it. Like, that is, I appreciate how that could just be, you know, that is just a lady of her time in
but
the
also
time.
quite timeless. Apart from like Holly's perm, some of the computers, it doesn't, and it obviously does feel 80s. You know, those political references and stuff like that.
Modernism of it, yeah.
But it also is intrinsically for me timeless. In that it could be any building, any time.
There's one reference to the LA Lakers right at the start. He's just exclusively naming 1980s basketball players.
Also, just unnecessary. Well, anyway, we'll talk about this in a second. But they do so many things to try and get these security guards off their guard, and it's like these people are getting paid nothing. They're all lazy. I think of Carl when he throws the discombobulator. And this guy's like just biting his nails, twiddling his thumbs. He could have just come around the corner and shot him. He doesn't expect a 6'5" Russian ballerina to turn the corner and shoot him dead. He doesn't need to throw in a little gas grenade to knock him off.
Yeah, I love him throwing in the flashbang and then it cutting to the security guard just being like, you know, like he's just woken up. Just like, oh, what the fuck was that? And then immediately just getting shot. Once again, in quite a funny manner. Him just being like, oh.
Yeah. What do we touch on before we go for our first break? There's so much. There's so very, very much. Okay, 10 minutes on best 10-minute stretches. I have initially the arrival of Gruber's men. And what we were just talking about, boom, we're in, you know, the security guard discombobulator. I wrote this note here. The guy who looks like Huey Lewis and just with his hands in his pockets, strolling in, wearing his jumper, wearing his big coat, and just completely unflappable. And there is the absolute threat and the absolute clear intelligence that we are dealing with people with a thorough plan who also, I mean, obviously John will build and build and build the things getting in the way of their plan, but are ready for things to go wrong. And yes.
Yeah, that was actually the first thing I wrote down for my for my 10 minutes. I subsequently changed it, so we do have more to talk about, which is nice.
We do.
Yeah, in that period, just the sense that you get of how clear a threat they are, as you said, is perfect. And the element at which they establish his character immediately by showing, he has a certain flair, a charisma, with the bit where he's like, due to the Nakatomi Corporation's history of greed around the globe. And then he
will all be with us as
snaps his notebook shut, and then he's like, now we have business to attend to. Immediately
I appreciate anybody who carries around a little leather black book.
I'm also like, what is he? Why did he need that open to say that? And then why was he shutting it? Because what does he not need to then find Takagi? Or was he just memorizing all the stuff about Takagi that he'd written down? This is the depth of this film.
It's great. It's great stuff, and it's a great threat as he slowly but surely walks around picking all the Asian men out, and he's like, born in Oklahoma, 1903, traveled the country, father of 5. He hangs around Ellis for a little bit too long, and I just think, was he in the car? Was he revising? Was like Carl going, in what year did Takagi move to England? And he's like, oh, I know this one. I know this one.
Get which business school? Stanford? No.
No, I know this.
But once again, something interesting my mum said as a first-time watcher was there were only 3 Asian men there.
Yes. Yes, I've always thought this. It's like, I mean, it's only going to be, and Holly's like, don't move. And it's like, what? So they can shoot randomly? So it's the other guy who works like a menial job and just happens to be Chinese. Like, that's not fair.
And then I also appreciate Takagi's first line of just, I am Takagi.
Yeah, I am Takagi. But then Hans is pissed off because he's like, I need to finish my facts. Father of 5. It's like, I spent all this time. Give me a break.
And then immediately back into perfect characterization of just how do you do?
How do you do? It's a pleasure to meet you. I love.
And
well,
dragging him off.
We've not even mentioned the name, Alan Rickman, which is probably the clincher for the double whammy of Bruce and Alan Rickman giving this the absolute, and it's quite sad. I'm not saying obviously Bruce Willis isn't dead. This comes out a year from now, so I don't. Just like Will spent so many episodes of the Sondheim series railing into Angela Lansbury, and then she died.
Railing Angela Lansbury.
He just hates her for no reason. He's just like, don't like her. Don't like her voice. And I'm like, Will, this woman is definitely going to pass soon. You need to calm down. But I mean, obviously, Alan Rickman died in 2016, and Bruce Willis is suffering from aphasia and has announced his retirement from acting. And there is that, and it's just a sort of solemn thing. And I mean, obviously, probably always, he's always going to be more well known as Snape. But there is something so particular about Gruber, and something so devilishly intelligent and charismatic and charming and humorous and also still very threatening. It's an ingenious tightrope, and people have done it attempted it over and over and over again since. But probably my favorite being John Lithgow in Cliffhanger. I think he does a pretty good job, actually. But I don't think it'll ever be beaten. And I'm going to ruin one of Tom's big questions now for our final 4 minutes. Is this the greatest movie villain ever? I know that's a ridiculously broad question, but I just think it's up. I think it's in the top 2, top 3.
I think he has to be, just because of the level of perfect casting that you have, because of Rickman's sort of I don't really know how to put it. His strange nature, his strange method of performing. It's not, even whilst he's doing straightforward performance, it doesn't come across as normal. Which
Well, I
means
think
that
the only one that can rival it is Lecter.
and
Is
even then, is he a villain? It's a different
yeah,
conversation.
it's the category for me is villains who are so likable and charismatic without losing any of their threats that you root for them. That for me is that, and we got it. I mean, the AFI's list: Norman Bates, number 2, yeah, Darth Vader, I guess, Wicked Witch, Nurse Ratched, yeah, Reagan McNeil. I mean, she's a possessed child. She's not even the villain. The alien. I mean, they've done a cheat code because, like, at number 15, they put Eamon Goth, Ray Fiennes in Schindler's List at 15. But like, A, don't put him in the list. B, put him at number 1, because then they've just like, because they've put in Eamon Goff at 15, and then it just makes everybody else look ridiculous. Like, number 10, the Queen from Snow White. Who's worse, Snow White's Queen or a literal Nazi?
Yeah, or Hitler.
Yeah. Where is Gruber? This is insane. He's at 46.
Name who's at 45?
Jack Nicholson's Joker.
Who's at 44?
Baby Jane Hudson in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane.
No.
Yeah, no, there's a good solid stretch.
And there's elements in which I disagree with the Joker being like an amazing movie villain because of its pre-existence. Yeah, I'm of the opinion that you could probably argue that Hans is the greatest movie villain ever and have a legitimate debate about why and be able to convince people why and not have to budge on those morals from yourself, simply because of the level that this performance goes into, the level at which he's constantly being undermined and adapting and then undermining John and then being undermined again, having to have everything back in control, executing his plan to perfection, and it's still going wrong.
Yeah, I think there is that. I just love Hans. I just love him. I could watch him forever. And also love Silence of the Lambs. I love every single frame of Silence of the Lambs. And I'm not saying that I don't like the scenes that Hannibal isn't in, because that's a lie. But Die Hard also gives us the full amount of Hans that we want. It's not like, it's not a situation where there's not enough. We get an awful lot, and we get plenty in our next 10-minute stretch, which we'll be talking about after our first break, because Zoom has gotten cheap. One. Okay, and we're back. Right, we were discussing 10-minute stretches. Here's my next possibility. The police heading in, and always a threat, always the comedy. You've got, I'll take it under your advisement. Now hit it again. And pair that with they're going for the lights. And they're going for the lights.
They're shooting out the lights.
Let's talk. Well, this is a prime example to talk about. Another perfect element that makes this film the incredible combination of things that it is the police element, in that we have an escalating level of police involvement all the way to the FBI. And every single time it's a build and it's a build, and constant, obvious throughout, we have the wonderful Al Powell, played by Reginald Val Johnson, who again could be comedic relief, could be, and is in a way, but like there is such a sincerity and warmth. And it is that sort of, instead of comedic relief, give me a breath relief or something, just to center us and remind us and bring us back. And he's always there for John. And, how are you feeling, right? Pretty fucking unappreciated, Al. And, but somebody who because I find with a lot of horror movies, especially the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, I get very annoyed at a certain point of like, just believe them. I can't do another hour of, you're lying. There's no such thing as a big boogie scary man. I'm like, Jesus Christ. I know that you don't know that, but please. And with this, we always have Al. Even if Dwayne hates John, and even if Johnson and Johnson don't, we always have Al.
And we're all, Al talks about how some of the other boys, they've got a bet on him, haven't they?
Yeah.
Which also shows, whilst we don't engage with it because it would kind of make no sense to, it still shows a sense of how there's multiple people that believe him.
Yeah.
And there's multiple people that, are listening to Al, listen to him and go sort of like, oh, there is actually a guy in there sorting all of this out. Meanwhile, it shows this Kafka-esque nonsense that's going on at the top level that exposes the gross incompetencies of the government and the police department and the state itself.
Which I think, if anything, I've got it as one of my changes, can sometimes be a little bit too cartoonish. I think as much as I like Dwayne, and I think Paul Gleason's great, basically playing the principal from Breakfast Club again, a couple of his lines make him a little bit too stupid and a little bit unbelievable. Specifically, Al, well, what about the guy who fell from the building? Probably some depressed stockbroker. Are you kidding me? That's ridiculous.
We're dealing with terrorists, and you just said some depressed stockbroker has just chucked himself off the side. Also,
I can believe him being pessimistic about John and the possibility of that being a double cross for spreading false information. But him thinking that one of the guys, I mean, it's just ridiculous. And I also think, as funny as they're shooting out the lights, and also at the very, very end, McLean, I want to debrief with you. Sure. Interfering with police business. Sure. Property damage. Are you having a laugh?
I wonder how much it's trying to expose. Because part of me is like, with John McClane being a policeman and the whole modern perception of these films, you can watch this film through a lens and not want perhaps the policeman to be the the hero of all time.
There are rules. You can't just kill people. That's what my Basky's telling me. The whole subplot of Al, I shot a kid, is probably the one thing that hasn't aged the best.
Yeah, in the modern context. I mean, probably in that context too.
Yes.
You have the massive LA riots that happened before this, right? The killing of Rodney.
No, that was 90. That was early 90s. But it's Rodney King. Yeah, Rodney King. But either way, you've got aggressive police tactics, and it's kind of a double-edged political sword of not making Reginald Val Johnson black. He was always black, but making Al be played by Reginald. Because originally they were considering Gene Hackman.
Yes.
And I can't even imagine watching that now, because I can't imagine watching a gritty 80s drama about Gene Hackman accidentally killing a young boy and him having to deal with that and then becoming, that would be great. I'd watch that.
Gene Hackman being the supporting actor, somewhat comic relief, heartfelt element of just
I shot a kid.
Yeah. It's just a different film. Once again, why this film was so perfect, because they got everything right in the end.
Imagine all of these Arnold Schwarzenegger as John McClane, Gene Hackman as Al. Were there any possibilities for Hans? I know that Joel Silver went and watched Les Liaisons des Dangereuses when Alan Rickman was in it on Broadway and was like, oh, this is the perfect sort of, European, charismatic, charming devil that we want. But
I've never read anything else other than Alan Rickman originally being like, are you stupid? I'm obviously not doing this. It's an action film.
Oh, yeah. Film debut.
Yes, which is insane. Sorry, I want to circle back around quickly. We might talk about this at length, but I do think that Al's, semi-redemption, I will put in air quotes, at the end is probably the worst part of the entire film.
Yeah. Yay!
Yeah, he finally managed to shoot a kid again.
The look on his face is also like, it's not like a happy one.
No,
Reginald
it
Val
should
Johnson is
be.
in that moment doing a performance like, I've learnt to shoot again, but is that good? And I'm like, okay, it's not the vibe.
It's not what should have happened at all. It is, unfortunately, like him not being able to pick up his gun and yet still being so helpful in the entire, violent scenario is perfect. And so I feel like they really didn't need to be like, oh, by the way, he's learned to shoot again, because that's everything's good with guns.
And also, it's the worst part of the film because you've got to tangle with the unbelievability of Carl. And
Of a
also,
hanged man being
who
alive.
decided, costuming, props, whatever, to have him just cut it 2 seconds later? Don't have the body bag on him. So he's got the gun in the body bag. Just wasn't needed. He could have just John just could have stumbled out. Did not need to be body bagged out.
They also should have probably found a way to have John kill him that wasn't so, aesthetically violent and definitive as a hanging. Like he could have just had him like bury him under like a load of crates, or have throw him off the side of something and be like, oh, that's done, and John runs off because he hasn't got time. No, he hung him with a big chain.
Yeah.
You don't survive that.
And also believable. Nothing secretly annoys me more than and it happens a lot, specifically in Sherlock Holmes, the end of Sherlock Holmes when Mark Strong gets strangled accidentally. And it's like, it happens so many times of look down, and they've got a perfect noose around their leg. And I'm like, this is stupid. But this, again, really believable. The tying and it's good. And I don't know why that's a pet peeve of mine, but I do hate, you missed. No, I didn't. And
yeah, no, the grittiness of all of it, in particular the violence, in particular the action, is something that really stands the test of time and comes through. You are getting the sense that John McClane is a man who knows how to fight, largely probably due to his upbringing, almost definitely due to his job, and is fundamentally dealing with, you have a difference even in action style. Carl is clearly a martial artist and has clearly been taught, and John's just a New York cop who's hanging him with a chain. Like,
maybe he did that. Maybe Carl went to the same naked Tai Chi classes that William Sadler in Die Hard 2 went to.
Almost certainly.
I am also defected famous Russian ballerina, Carl.
Yeah, insane when you really think about it. And that comes across because he's 6'4" and so elegant.
Yeah. Yes, Hans, I want blood. And you will have it. My next 10-minute stretch is Afi. Again, non-stop. There is that element of no bad parts. Well, I mean, we just mentioned a few, like possible niggly changes and stuff, tiny little things, but no bad sequence, no bad scene, no extended, oh, this is the 30 minutes. It is we were on about watching the final hour again and dropping in. You can but the first 20 minutes is really solid and entertaining and for what it is. And then just when you think that the movie's going to get a dip or something and it's getting into a rhythm, bam, Ellis makes his move. And we get that incredible 10 minutes and that starts off comedically, then becomes really tense. You think Ellis is a turncoat and you're like, oh no, Holly. Oh no, he's thrown Holly under the bus because she wouldn't fuck him or whatever, or go on the date. Then you get the reveal that actually, no, Ellis is a good guy. He's not thrown Holly under the bus, but he does think that John is the wild man and is going to ruin it. Then you get John's... I really do think it's a dynamite 10 minutes with all the things that we're talking about. The right elements of comedy, everybody's great in it, and a genuine threat to the extent that, obviously, he gets killed, which then, if anything, weighs more on John, because this is the first death that's quote-unquote his fault.
I find that to be one of the sort of genuine points of emotional depth in the film. Emotional depth is rife throughout it, but you get a real sense that John is like, oh my God, he's going like John knows he's going to die,
Yeah.
and that's when the audience realizes he's going to die because it comes across through John and through the performance, and you get a real sense of this man being like, they are literally going to kill you, and it's kind of going to be my fault,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to take the blame for this because it's not my fault. It's your fault for doing this.
When he goes, Hans, I met this guy tonight. John, how can you say that after all these
After
years?
all these years. And it's just, and then you see, and then he stops talking because he's like, it's over. There's nothing I can do. I've said, tell him you don't know me. And he refuses to. And now they're going to kill you. Because
Hans, this is radio, not television. Put the gun away.
Yeah, no need for the props. Although, but I will then say that his sort of panicked glug of coke before getting shot is once again a perfect shot of him just like
Glug, glug, glug.
And
then bang, shoot, and then running out. Pretty soon I'll get to somebody you do care about. Just absolute ratcheting of tension.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will say, a thought that always comes across every time I watch this film is how much Ellis looks like a young David Tennant at points.
No. Sorry. Yeah, I guess maybe that's Hart Bachner, who is like barely in a lot, but he's like Warren Beatty's best friend.
That's insane.
And yeah, he's the killer in what's it called? Urban Legends Final Cut, which is the bad Urban Legends sequel. I have a wasted
my
life.
favorite 10-minute stretch.
Well, there's two left, and these are two of the finest things ever put on film, which are obviously Hans as Bill Clay.
Yes, of course.
And then it's 20 minutes, it's whatever you want to call it, but helicopters, John versus Carl, blow the roof, finding out about come home, and
what would you say to your mom and dad?
And the absolute perfect building. I've seen this a million times, and I watched this 2 days ago. I was sat in my front row blasting the sound. That 20 minutes works like nothing in any other action film. It is that perfect confluence of a series of different things building and building and building and building and building, and the helicopters and the explosion, and I'm on your side, and it's just perfect.
It comes from the fact that the base of the film, the film itself is so well paced. That's that's always inherent in a good film anyway. The film itself is so well paced, from the start, from the slow build, from the fact that they don't really want to kill people but are willing to use force. So it just culminating in, your quintessential action sequence means that it doesn't feel out of place. It actually feels incredibly necessary because although we have had action sequences, John fighting the terrorists at length before, we haven't had anything that is like a definitive stereotypical action movie sequence up to that point, which means that it's entirely necessary for the film to be what it is.
The hostages have never been at stake.
Yes.
And we know that we have seen them die before. And so there is the distinct possibility. And then when you throw in the FBI guys not caring, I guess we lose 20% of the hostages. I think we blame,
I can live with that. Just like being in Saigon, eh, Slick? I was in junior high, dickhead.
Might be my favorite line of the entire film. When it reminds me of in Seven, when all the FBI guys are like going in, and Morgan Freeman just goes, "They love this." Just that little moment. And then, but let's go back to the definitive best part of the film, which is, for me anyway, Bill Clay and the flopping of his hair.
I've got it down as my favorite one single minute,
I
which
love
we
it. Yeah,
can enter later. But it is the second part when it comes back to them and they're talking, and he's like, "And if you're not one of them,"
yeah.
but
Oh God! Oh God!
the initial reveal of because we're seeing Hans. Hans does not leave that office at any point.
No.
Suddenly, we're kind of like, and it makes sense in the story because he's like, "I'll go check on what needs to be checked on," which is all the explosives. But you do get a real jarring sense when Hans is out of it and you're seeing him on his own, completely exposed to the elements. It is just a bit like, oh, this is weird. Why has this happened? And immediately you realize why it's happened because we get essentially the best part of the entire film. But the level to which, once again, the characterization comes out that he has the quickest thinking to be like, oh, I know exactly who you are, finally, and I've got you. But I can't. I'm the one in the vulnerable situation. Me as the big bad guy. You have been in the vulnerable situation this entire time. And you finally got me in the vulnerable situation. How am I going to get out of this? And he's so clever that he gets out of it immediately. It's such perfect characterization. And it's done in the only way it could be done. It's funny. It's a wonderful performance. It makes sense in the film.
And the back and forth of who's holding the power, and back and forth, and just 42, das Vater, du Schlader. Oh, that's not real German. And then, oh, oops, no bullets. And then, you think I'm fucking stupid, Hans? Ding! You are saying. It's just absolute. I think if I didn't watch this movie for 20 years and you played the sound effect of that specific elevator bing, because it's like not normal, it's like a slightly dulled one.
Yeah.
I'd be like, it's the Die Hard elevator.
If this was in a quiz, it was like, what is this from? Dun. You'd be like, oh shit, I know that.
I have only caused a fuss at like one quiz. And they did a Christmas movies picture quiz. Because I've been a quiz master, I know whether it's shit. And they had a picture of ho ho ho, now I have a machine gun.
Yeah. Wait, now I have a machine gun. Ho ho ho, you mean?
Oh, okay. And they said it was Die Hard 2.
Which
and I was like, I'm not going to cause a fuss. I knew the quizmaster. I was like, Matt, I'm not going to cause a fuss. But it's not Die Hard 2. It's Die Hard.
It's definitely Die Hard.
And he was like, no, it says Die Hard 2 here. And I said, no, it's actually in Die Hard. And it's set in the Nakatomi Plaza. And that is the brother of Carl. And I did my annoying thing. But
yeah,
how can you get it so wrong?
I don't really know, especially when Die Hard, when, original films, the first in a series is almost exclusively the known one. And is the one where all the references and the stereotypes come from. That's a disgrace. That was actually my favorite 10-minute stretch. I'd like to talk more about Bill Clay, but that was actually my favorite 10-minute stretch, I think, which is the killing of Takagi. If we can extend it to 15, the conversation with Takagi, all the way through the first proper action sequence to now I have a machine gun, ho ho ho, which I think is.
Is there any more satisfying sound than Alan Rickman saying "barabons"?
Barabons.
Non-negotiable barabons.
I do want the $640 million you have in premium non-negotiable barabons in your vault.
What sort of terrorist? Who said anything
Who
about
said
us
we
being?
Well, his laugh is, this weird, this sort of element that Hans Gruber is a weirdo as well. Yeah. It's through him just being like.
Yeah, I could. As much as I could talk about construction and men's fashion all day, he's got the way I just said "de" reminds me of one of your previous episodes, Mr. Tim Curry as Frankenfurter.
Come up to the lab. That's the same voice.
I know. What about you, Janet? Do you a weakling weighing 98 pounds. Burns is the exact same inflection.
Oh, you've blown my mind here. He is Dr. Frankenfurter. That's probably because it's a very quintessentially English gentleman trying to do their German accent.
Yeah. Well, we know that Alan Rickman can do good American accents, but I think there's something about Bill Clay in that it's a really good, half
Yeah.
bad but believable impression.
A German man. He's an English man doing a German accent, doing an American accent, which means that when he's like, and if you're not one of that,
Yeah.
and when he asks him, "Do you smoke?" and he does like a little giggle to something. Like, yeah.
It's very good. I have now, yes, Takagi. Next thing is Tom Riddler's specific favorite part of the film. Here we go, in quick succession. Dude, you can do the Pick of the Pops music if you want. The gun holster on the airplane, and the guy realizing, why did I fuck with this guy? Why did I prank the man holding a gun? The weird, I don't know if it's a change, I don't know what it is, but the weird fuck me eyes that he has with the air stewardess. It's like, okay, we don't know he's married yet.
Is that just an element of like, oh, he's a traditionally attractive man and we need to establish this?
I guess, maybe. The image of John smoking at a baggage carousel with a huge teddy, and me thinking the 80s were a different time.
Once again, my mum said, "Oh, he's smoking."
Yeah, the idea of like the LA, and the woman in jeggings or whatever, who runs up to her boyfriend. That's not a thing we can do anymore. You can't go into an airport and greet somebody at the thing. The little girl, the McLean residence. She has a lisp on McLean residence that she doesn't have for the rest of the film. The moment at the when he puts the name in and he realizes that she's down as Holly Gennaro, very sad. Holly's first, John, love it, love Bonnie Bedelia. I really subtle. I mean, it's not subtle at all. He calls him his brother, but I love Carl. Hey, brother. Just so that we remember. Hans' little book and his hands to silence people. Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, and gentlemen.
I mean, obviously, I thought it would be adult and cooperative. Unfortunately, Mr. Takagi will not be joining us for the rest of his life. And he's just eating the party shrimp. And I had an immediate thought, and I don't know if I could put it in a comedy or something. What if he got seafood poisoning?
Over the course of the night, he's throwing up.
Yeah, that would be really interesting. John just being a prankster, and the idea, I mean, it's famous now, so there's no concept in our mind that you would do anything else. But the idea of killing a German terrorist, writing on his jumper, "Now I have a machine gun, ho ho ho," and putting a Santa hat on him
in his own blood
is actually insane.
It's sadistic when you think about it. In his own blood.
Yeah, and then Holly's just like, oh, John must be alive. Only John, she's like, only John would play sick, sadistic games and make a brother.
Only John would write on a man's jumper in his own blood after he's killed him.
What if this is actually the origin story of a villain himself? And he because he doesn't do anything else like that again. Like he doesn't
throw a terrorist out of the window.
Yeah, but that's to get Al.
He also, if he missed it, could have crushed Al to death with a falling man. If he missed the car, he'd have just watched a man explode.
Yeah, I was going to say there should be a lot more blood when he falls.
Yes, there should.
Which leads us to this guy. I've got a couple more. Carl flipping the table. The roof, go.
The roof.
I love best supporting. Obviously Alan Rickman should have been nominated for best supporting actor, but if there was somebody else who should win best supporting actor for this, it is the terrorist who jumps on top of the table and goes, "No more table." Where you going to go, pal?
You should have killed me when you got the chance. And then John's just giving it the.
I don't actually think I want. I don't think I want the Nakatomi Christmas shirt that you've got. I want a shirt that says "No more table."
No more table.
No more table. Can we do a parody version of the song "No More Heroes" by the Stranglers, just to "No More Table"?
I think we should finally do our parody of Die Hard, in which, an Austin Powers-esque parody of Die Hard, in which you obviously play Hans Gruber and I play John McClane.
Who's Will? Is Will your gay husband? Is he Bonnie Bedelia?
Will might have to be Harry Gennaro.
No, Will should be Carl because he's my underling.
And he's blonde.
I was just going to say the same thing.
We could get John in as Al.
Oh, bring everybody back. Fly Bailey over.
We'll fly Bailey over to play
Alice.
Yeah.
Well, let's not forget, we did a parody of a sort of cop thing, and I was Al Pacino.
No. Your actual character name was Racist Al Pacino. I want you to know that. That's how that character's credited.
Why is he racist again?
What?
Why is he racist again?
I think he was. I don't. He's just. I think because obviously we couldn't have you playing Al Pacino for copyright reasons, so we have you playing Al Pacino, and the take is that it's just Al Pacino has gone racist, and he's kidnapped somebody, and then when the cops have like busted him, he just starts talking about like jive music and talking in jive.
I'm not going to say that Toffee and Fudge is the greatest comedy film of the past 20 years, but I could argue that the shot where I hide under the sofa and my hands are out is actually the funniest thing that has been put on screen in 50 years. I legitimately think that is the funniest thing in the world.
Well, I think your performance when I kick you in the balls, and it zooms into your face of going, "Hey, Mambo!" It mirrors the zoom on Al's face when he finally kills again.
Yeah, it's in Godfather Part 2, the final bit where he's just sat by the lake and he's just going, and he's just thinking about all the things he's done wrong in his life. It's good, but it's not as good as Al Pacino getting kicked in the balls in a comedy film we filmed in my garage. A couple more Tom's weirdly specific favourite parts of the film. Poor Al reversing through bushes and just stop, my man. Just put the brakes on. Instead, he just
Swiss cheese.
Monica, I can get you a reservation. Wolfgang and I are good friends. He can tell a phony ID. Jesus Christ, pal, he could be a fucking bartender.
Why would he be there if he was a bartender?
He's been hired by the catering company, and it's like, you got to stop with your theories. They're wrong. What else we got? Ellis's smile after, I can give them to you. Smile. I love the listing of bullshit propaganda. Asian Dawn, and then John on the other, cut away to John. What the fuck? Asian Dawn?
And then Carl being like, Asian Dawn is, I read about them in Time. No, in Forbes.
No, Times. I read about them in Times. That's Times magazine.
Yes.
Forbes is earlier when he's talking to Takagi.
I read about them in Time magazine.
And then a wonderful callback later when Dwayne is like, no, Dawn, honey. D-A-W-N.
Sir, the FBI are here. The FBI are here now. You want a breath mint? Just perfect.
Ellis being dragged through with a bullet to the head as the TV reporter's talking about the Helsinki syndrome.
Helsinki, Sweden.
Finland. And then, I love shoot the glass.
Yeah.
John's bloodied feet.
Not to keep talking about my mum's experience of watching this film, but when they talk in German, my mum was like, "Oh, I wish I knew what they were saying," and then I was like, "You will."
I've heard about this before when somebody was talking about, I can't remember. It might have even been Die Hard, but like, I don't know what jumping off a roof tied to a fire hose feels like, but I do know what having a piece of glass in my foot feels like, and that it's that sort of realistic, tangible thing that brings us back down.
Yeah,
because it's that thing that when people talk about Saw, and it's like, I can watch any Saw movie because they're stupid. It's like, yeah, but the scene in Saw 2 where she jumps into that pit of hypodermic needles,
we all know what that would feel like.
Yeah.
It's so visceral. The amount of blood coming off his feet as he drags them into that bathroom is so visceral. It's the most disgusting point of a film in which multiple people are murdered.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Like, we're just, pardon me, desensitized to violence, but I know what getting a piece of glass in my foot feels like. Maybe my sneaky favorite Hans Gruber line, "You're just a common thief. I'm an exceptional thief." And you can see the sweat and now at this stage his back's against the wall.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant. John in the water. I love the elevator bing and then just an explosion. But we're so far in, it's completely earned.
That was something one of my friends said when I watched it. He was like, "Did that need a ding?" And I was there like, "Oh, that's quite funny."
Argyle crashing into the ambulance. That scream of Hans. I love Holly's face and gasp when John puts down the gun. Put down the gun, McLean. And he does. And Holly's face of, what's he going to do? He's
lost. Yeah, we've lost. She had utmost faith in him the entire time.
Yeah. And then, obviously, I mean, as if he's an alien. What is it you said to me? Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. It's like, what the hell? Are you eating peanut butter?
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Yeah, motherfucker. It's like League of Gentlemen, Pam Dove. Yeah. Excuse me, can I get a bottle of orange Dove? It's like, sorry, Alan, the line is, you just, earlier when Bruce said it and it was funny, you're going to do it again. It's like, okay. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. It turns into like Gary Oldman in Hannibal, where it's like, Cordell. And it's like, it never fails to make me laugh.
Yeah, muff. Yeah, it just goes towards that characterization of which he can't say these things properly. And he's a little weirdo. He's a little weirdo who can't laugh properly. And it means his American accent is, oh god.
Do you have any? I mean, we've touched on a few, but those weirdly specific favorite parts.
So my weirdly specific, and I don't even know if this is something I'd want to change because it doesn't make any sense, but my weirdly specific favorite part of it is, and this isn't my favorite line, we'll come on to favorite line, I assume, but is the bit where we go through the rigmarole of John interacting with a touch screen, which must have been so new in 1988. Oh, yeah. And so he goes through the rigmarole of interacting with this, finally finds Holly Gennaro, and it's like, 36th floor or whatever it is. And the security guard just goes, "Oh, yes, the party. They're the only people left in the building." Oh, brilliant. Okay, you couldn't have told him that? You couldn't have assumed he was maybe going to the only other people left in the building on Christmas Eve?
What are you, a German terrorist? We have to check these things. You could be like part of a German terrorist team. We gotta put precautions in. I only let people in if they're look like good, honest people, and I make them do the computer, or if they come in spouting some interesting jargon about American football. They're the only two times.
I also like him getting into the party, having a sip of what in my head is Campari, and just putting it back down because he's like, "Oh, that's disgusting. What is that drink? Why are they serving drinks that are disgusting? Why are they serving drinks that are just red and shots?" It's the only thing I can think that it could be is Campari.
I also think that's a bit like, hey, John's a man of man. It's like in A Few Good Men, when like to make Tom Cruise look more human, which is tough. They bring. He orders a bottle of beer. He orders a beer, and they come with the bottle of beer and a glass. And he's like, "What's this glass?" And he's like, he doesn't throw it away, but he might as well throw it into the corner and hear it smash. Because his reaction is like, "I don't drink beer in a glass. What the hell is that?" Like, okay, calm down, Frank Cafe. We get it. I think that was that.
Go on, sorry. I also like all of the outraged Germanisms from the start of the film to the end. I like when Carl's brother, I've written his name now, Tony, when Tony is trying to cut the wires and he's like, "Nine."
It just doesn't care.
Yeah, as Carl's sawing through it. And then when they're getting the missile out to shoot the RV, and they're like, Chanel. And they're just like throwing these missiles around and they're falling off. And he's like, "No, leave it. It's fine."
Or when Tony's walking around the corridors and he's like, Vana, rechts. And I'm like, I don't know what that means.
Linke, rechts.
It's like, surely they're, and also it's a single corridor. And he couldn't figure out left, right. I thought of like Zoolander when he's like, "I can't turn left."
I also really appreciate all of the aesthetic decisions made for the individual terrorists.
Mm.
I like the one who eats the chocolate bars. I like his wispy mustache. I obviously love the hair of the. He has a name, and it's bad that I don't know it. I think it's Fritz actually.
Vigo
Who-
the Carpathian from Ghostbusters 2.
yes, the one with the hair.
Yeah.
Perfect. Um, I also like Tony being like a nerd, like a massive stop, but then he's got these glasses and this like stupid haircut, but he's huge.
I
Which
also let's touch on this now, and I mean, we're two white guys or whatever. No real stereotypes to say it's an 80s movie. Like
yeah, there's not much.
Al's not really a stereotype. That I mean, I'm stereotyping now because I'm calling him the black guy because I can't remember his character name. But the Theo,
Yes,
Theo, who's doing the codes,
but
not
Theo,
really. Yeah,
because all of these people, there's not much diversity in this film. To be fair, there's a bit. We've got Asian characters, we have black characters.
but nobody's villainized. It's not like I like the idea
Nobody's.
of Takagi and the sort of Asian invasion of money is a plot in a lot of other 80s movies.
Yeah,
And here, Takagi's not really like
no,
stereotyped or,
not
he's a very
Theo.
intelligent man,
Theo's stereotype is that he's a nerd. So, like,
which isn't
he says,
really a black quote unquote stereotype.
no, it's not. Al is a stereotype of a policeman. He's buying,
Mm.
I thought you guys only ate donuts. He's quite large. He's quite lazy in doing his job.
Therefore, my wife.
Yeah, sure, bag it.
Yeah.
But it's not a stereotype at any point or a caricature of being black. Yeah, no, you are right. It could have just been horrendous at points, and
It's
it's
great.
not.
It's a wonderful film. The only stereotype is the evil German, which we can all.
Which we can all agree is fine.
Which is an incredible moment to end on for our second break. We'll be back for our third and final part to discuss and conclude our discussion of Die Hard 1. We come to the end of our Die Hard episode. I do this a lot. Sometimes I say this for the end. This is wonderful, Sam. We should do this more often. What you can choose. You can have full Kate Blanchett on what you want your next film to be. You can do any film you want.
Cars 2.
We'll go back to Die Hard. The we'll touch on that again in a second. Building on set. Obviously, the 20th Century Fox building, which doubles for Nakatomi Plaza. Is this like really well-known trivia now that it's called the Nakatomi Plaza, and B, like I don't know. I think a lot of people could hazard a guess at that.
Yeah, I think Nakatomi Plaza is now it's becoming more and more well known with the normies.
Well, that was my big question when you said you watched it with your friends of like how much did they already know through osmosis?
I don't know if I couldn't tell you whether they knew
Yeah.
the term Nakatomi Plaza or not, but I know for a fact there was a big element of it in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, in which
Oh,
Andy Samberg's Jake Peralta loved to Die Hard. And I think a lot of people probably subsumed some knowledge of it through that, because I know that was beloved.
rest in peace, Andre Brower. But I
Indeed.
don't really like Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I'll love Andre Brower in Primal Fear, where he's got like a really small supporting role. But
yes, rest in peace, Andre Brown.
rest in peace, Andre Brower. And all the other people who have died in the whole year. Angela Lansbury.
Yeah. Andre Brower, and of course the Queen.
The Queen and Diana. Which weirdly enough is my dream dinner party is Andre Brower, Diana, the Queen, and Angela Lansbury.
Weirdly enough, Andre Brower and the Queen and Diana would be my recasting of Die Hard.
Oh. John Phillips. I hear Arafat buys his suits there.
My favorite line in the entire thing.
Oh, it's great. It's wonderful.
John Phillips, London.
Yeah.
John Phillips, London.
Do you know the codes?
That Bice is there too.
They don't know anything. They don't know
You
everything.
know what? I didn't know I had a Diana impression in me until then. And I backed myself and it paid off.
The key, and I mean, Emma Corrin made a whole career out of it, is the little
to die in a tunnel in Paris, of course.
Yeah. I was talking about the other day. Oh my God, what was it? It was like, sorry, my mum was telling me, apparently there's a restaurant at the Versace mansion. And I was like, oh, the one where he got shot at.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I was and I was like, really? That can't be true. And she was like, yeah, apparently, yeah. But my mum also, 2 years after Leslie Nielsen died, Kate said to me, guess who's died? I was like, who? Leslie Nielsen. I was like, he died 3 years ago. It must be an anniversary. She was like, oh, right. That's not true, actually. She was at the bottom of the stairs and she said, guess who's died? And I said, I don't know. And she was like, I'll give you a clue. Surely you can't be serious. And I said, are you talking about Leslie Nielsen? Yeah. What were we talking about? Diana?
Diana in Die Hard, I think.
Die Hard.
Diana Hard.
Right.
Lady Die Hard.
All of these fringe plays, we could go to Edinburgh Fringe with Die Hard. That would not be hard. That would be
Die Hard, in which I'm no. Would you play Diana?
It depends.
We both have to play facets of Diana, playing
Prince
all of
Charles is King Charles is obviously Hans, is the villain.
Yeah, obviously.
What if Lady Di is Holly and James Hewitt is John McClane?
Because he's got the gun knowledge.
Yeah, what a man.
He really does. And what would that make Mr. Al-Fayed?
Dodi Al-Fayed. Well, obviously the Queen would be Takagi.
Mohammed Al-Fayed.
Obviously the Queen would be Takagi, which would be very dark.
And would make Mohammed Al-Fayed and Dodi Al-Fayed Carl and Tony.
And not to mention all the others you were probably with. This reminds me of when we were in the back of a bus and went for an ungodly amount of time talking about the possibility of Elton John being behind Kirsty MacColl's death to try and get to the top of the Christmas charts with Step Into Christmas again.
Every year, since then, somebody brings up the joke about, dads being like, Kirsty MacColl died in a speedboat accident. And I, without thinking, go, oh yeah, by Elton John. And then immediately have to go, sorry, that's a joke you wouldn't get.
Yeah, nobody understands that joke.
I'm a person explaining my jokes to people who've never met you because of when we used to sit at the back of a bus to college and joke about Elton John killing Kirsty MacColl in a speedboat to get Step Into Christmas to number one.
Back to number one in 1986 instead of Fairytale New York. Oh, what and when we did impressions of Elton John, it would be a Cockney gangster. We really bulked up the Cockney East End London aspect of
You'd be
Elton.
doing Crocodile Rock, just like I remember when I was on a speedboat. Oh no.
Oh, those were the days, my friend. I thought they'd never end. Oh, Die Hard. Other single minutes. I love the argument in the bathroom. Really realistic argument. Really realistic sort of married couple argument. And apparently Stephen A. D'Souza came up with this argument idea because he had a bad argument with his wife, and then he was like involved in a near car crash or something. And he was like, what if the last conversation I had with my wife was that argument? And he thought that would be a really interesting final thing for John and Holly to be involved in. Not to mention, obviously, we're getting the not exposition, but the sort of the conversation about the name Gennaro and all that stuff.
Well, I think he's completely right. I do think it is a fascinating dynamic, and I think it is very interesting to be like, what if the last time I ever saw my wife I was trying to get back together with, I had to go and we'd had a massive argument, and then I had to go and kill a load of German terrorists.
Yeah.
I do inherently think it's a very, very good narrative point to have it developing around. And the argument scene, I think, is perfect. They argue like real people argue, which doesn't often happen, but them just talking over each other and responding, heart to halfway measured comments, and it just being like that. It's just a horrible, it gives the depth and the background and the development of these characters who have experience together. It doesn't make you think these are two people who are seeing each other for the first time.
I'm not going to pretend that it's my favorite line over like something like Arafat buys his suits there or something, but I do love. We had this argument last July. It's like it's December, Holly.
Yeah. We never finished this argument.
What a great little back and forth. That to say the phrase "it doesn't need it" is inherently against what we've just spent an hour and a half talking about. But this technically doesn't need a 5-minute marriage story, scene, but makes everything work 10 times better. I also have a nomination. Oh, sorry, go on.
Sorry, and then John immediately afterwards in the mirror to himself, just going, "Oh, really? You handled that really well, John. Really mature." Because we've all done that. We've all had an argument and then been in the bathroom afterwards and just been looking at yourself like, "Gee, fucking, what's happening here? Why have you done this?"
Is a man of all men. He is the everyman. Soundtrack corner. Christmas in Hollis, Run DMC. What a great track.
Unbelievable. So really weird song to have in there. It makes sense in the context of what's happening. But when you think about it in a vacuum, insane song to have in this film. However, the line, "It's Christmas time in Hollis, Queens. Mom's cooking chicken and collard greens." One of the finest rhymes I think there's ever been.
It's really beautiful. Don't you have any Christmas music? This is Christmas music.
It's Christmas music.
And then, of course, that wonderful incorporation of Ode to Joy throughout the entire film in that sort of just piecemeal here. He's whistling it. Da, 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 da. And then that orgasmic release when the vault is done. The hair, the little blow in his hair. And that we finally get everything building. They do... That's what they use in Die Hard 3 as well, isn't it? When they do... Yeah.
Because by that point, it would have been the European Union's anthem, too, which is perfect for them being German.
Yeah. My favorite thing, speaking of Die Hard 3, is messaging my friend Ava or whatever, anytime I see a riddle or like on Facebook and it's like, how many holes are in this shirt? And either will send a voice memo going, "Simon has two brothers and three." My favorite thing is doing
what gets wetter as it dries.
Exactly, doing really easy riddles as Jeremy Irons.
I have a mouth but never speak.
Yes. What is a bed? What is a bed? But it's always moving. A river.
I think it's a bed but never sleeps.
Oh, all right. Wow. Okay. Well, I'd be dead on the streets of New York. That poor little kid who's that school with the big red jelly in it, done.
Absolutely obliterated.
They should do a parody where it is just the same thing with the water jugs and stuff, but it's me. And it's like me getting incredibly frustrated.
It's you. You don't die in these explosions, but you just keep getting them wrong and being like, "Fuck."
Yeah.
And everybody's like, you've got one more. We're giving you one more chance, and you're like, "I've got this one. I've got this one."
Johnny, you okay? Because I've got like 5 other bombs across the country, and like this, I've got a lot more stuff to do.
What gets wetter as it dries, and you're just like, "Oh, sponge. Sponge, is it sponge?" And Samuel L. Jackson's there like, "It can't be a sponge. A sponge is always really wet. It absorbs liquid." And you're like, "Is it a sponge? Could be a sponge."
It's gotta be sponge. It's the guy on The Chase who's like, where he's like, "I think it's Nestle. I think it's Nestle. Mars." And then Bradley,
Samuel L.
"Sorry,
Jackson's
it's
like,
Nestle.
I think it's a towel. I think it's towel." And you're just like, towel. Sponge.
Yeah.
An entire school goes up.
I love Die Hard 3. I love them all. No, that's not true. I love the first three. But for me, that is them all.
Yes.
I don't
Feynman.
actually think I have seen Die Hard 5.
I have. I saw it at the cinema in our year 10 cinema trip because we used to have a cinema trip every year with school.
Because it was a kid, because it was a 12.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I saw it then and just remember being like, this is making no lasting impression on me.
Yeah. That's his son, isn't it?
Yes, but I can't remember who his son is.
What am I did a movie quiz on board, and one of the questions was, in which film series would you find a Gruber as the first? Sorry, in which film series would you find a Gruber as the villain in the first and third entry? And some of the reactions were like, name all 60 elements in order. Like, what's a Gruber? I was like, are you for real?
Yeah, I like if you know, you just go, oh, that's
Yeah.
Die.
There were people who were like thinking it was a riddle. They were like, what's a Gruber?
Is it a sponge? Is it a sponge? I think it might be a towel.
it's like, A, calm down. The answer was always calm down. The reactions. Oh, anyway. Let's do best line, because I mean we've probably got 100. So
No, we've already done them.
we've already done a lot. Actually, no, there's a few that have
Snuck past.
Yeah, here's one. I love Holly. You know, you'll have to forgive Alice. He gets depressed this time of year. He thought that he was God's greatest gift. It's lovely. I love, and when Alexander saw the breadth of his domain, he wept, for there are no more worlds to conquer. Benefits of a classical education. Welcome to the party, pal. Obviously, great moment. Little moment, you know. I'm not the one who just got bucked on national TV. Dwayne.
Dwayne. And then Argyle's laugh.
Yeah. Hey, babe, I negotiate $1 million deals for breakfast. I think I can handle this Euro trash. Hey, sprechen Sie talk?
And then immediately afterwards, him going, you use a gun, I use a pen. Big difference.
Yeah, what's the difference? Yeah. I hope I'm not interrupting anything. What does he want? I've got it here. It's not what I want, it's what I can give you. Well, I've watched 60 Minutes and I'm saying to myself, they're motivated, they're happening. I.e., they want something.
And I must have missed 60 minutes.
Business is business. And then hands, booby.
Booby.
I'm your white knight.
Your white knight.
Oh, wonderful. And then we've already mentioned sorry, go on. Yeah, you shoot.
No, you go.
I've only got one left. 9 million terrorists in the world, and I got to kill one with feet smaller than my sister.
Just an amazing line.
Would you not? Maybe it's picking like tiny bits or whatever. He only tries one terrorist's shoes.
Yeah, that is their get around, which is like he tried it and he can't get any more. Chances are, if he tried somebody else's, they'd have fit.
Maybe like we're getting into like territory of like he's racist. He thinks all Germans are the same shoe size.
All European. Yeah, I suppose we as the audience have to just assume that all of the terrorists are tiny Germans and he's a big American man.
It's like, oh my God, of all the terrorists in the world, and they chose a bunch of Germans. It was like, sorry, what was that, John? They all have small feet, you know. That's your theory?
So you haven't tried on anyone else's shoes? No, I tried on one guy's. You didn't try. You've killed 7 people.
Yeah, when he's talking to Al, and he's like, "So why aren't you on the force? You flat-footed? Are you small-footed? Small-footed, John. What's that? You know, like these Germans." What? Sorry, John.
John, they've all got size 9 feet.
Yeah, John. Carl is a 6'6" ballerina. He definitely is fine.
Oh. Anyway, as I said earlier, my favorite line is nice suit, John Phillips, London. I have 2 myself. Rumor is Arafat buys his there. What?
And he brings it up twice more. He brings it up twice more. As much as I love to talk about construction, men's wear, and then later. And once again, that's a wonderful suit, Mr. Takagi. I would be ashamed to spoil it. And it's like, oh, you really love this suit, guy.
He just loves men's fashions. And the reference to Arafat, first and foremost, you don't get many references to Yasser Arafat ever, really.
Maybe we were talking about it not being dated. Maybe that.
Yeah, but secondly, it paints them as part of this sort of anti-Western axis, which is perfect because I've been reading about the situation for the writing of the book, and it's situated in this thing called the German Autumn, in which this far left German organization kidnapped and murdered a former SS soldier who was an industrialist and businessman. And then the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine hijacked a Lufthansa flight at basically the same time. And I didn't know.
Autumn, though. German Autumn. Great name for like a romance film.
Or a band.
Or a band, yeah.
A German Autumn.
Arafat Suits. That could be a name.
Oh, yeah. Arafat Suit. Just Arafat.
Maybe that should be a new category for me. I've recently brought in best specific Halloween costume. What do you think?
From this?
Yeah.
I would cover myself in shards of glass and blood, and I would go as John McClane's feet.
Yeah, I would do just one couple's costume, right and left.
Right and left foot.
You could probably wear the fake feet that he's very clearly wearing. Have you like
the Hobbit feet?
Just subsume them. I'm trying to think. That's about it, really. You know, obviously, very famous.
Bag of donuts.
Yeah. A few fun facts. I've actually mentioned Dangerous Liaisons. We've mentioned, apparently, in an article for the 30th anniversary for the film, Bonnie Bedelia stated that the first thing she thinks of when someone mentions the movie is Alan Rickman. The two became friends and had lunch together every day while shooting the movie. She expressed how lovely and gentle Rickman was in real life. I don't want to read into things, but is that Bonnie Bedelia admitting to an affair with Alan Rickman?
Yeah, that just sounds a bit like they fucked.
Yeah. And then I was thinking, what a great rom-com idea! Like the damsel in distress and the villain
filming a film, falling in love and filming a film while the main character gets increasingly more erratic and jealous.
And there's like, you know, there's a stupid plot line where she sees him film one of the villain scenes, and she's like, "Is that what you really like?" And he goes, "No."
In his English accent, no.
No. Tagline rundown. It will blow you through the back of the wall of the theatre. It's a threat more than anything.
That's me on Hinge. That is my opening line.
Maybe that should be my new. Which of these taglines should be a Hinge thing?
Yeah.
Here's a few more. 40 stories, 12 terrorists, 1 cop.
That's just facts. Those are just facts.
Yeah.
That isn't a tagline.
These two actually could be Hinges for you. Suspense, excitement, adventure on every level.
Yeah, that's me. That's me on Hinge immediately as we end this.
This could be one. He's the only chance anyone has got. like, be honest, love. We're all getting older.
I'm the only chance anyone's got.
They're all good. What's the change? Kind of bleeds into Tom's big question. A few things left. The theory about getting where you're going and then making fists with your toes, quite clever, actually. Like, because you think about that, and then it took me forever to realize what the trick was. And I'm willing to admit that it's like been this year that I've realized that like you get where you're going and you make the fist, and then you're like, oh, I'm off the plane anyway because I'm where I'm going. That took me a long time, and I'll admit that.
I don't really know.
You can think less of me, I understand.
Well, I don't think less of you. I'm just a bit like, well, yeah, but I don't look down on you for not realizing that. I just think it's something I've actually taken to practicing on occasion after watching Die Hard, making these fists with my toes and being like, ah, there we are.
Office Christmas party sex. The couple that they walk in on, that office is like 2 offices away from like the main party.
And it's
they couldn't. They're the only people in the building. They couldn't go down to another floor. And
as my mother pointed out, she's got her tits out. He ain't even got his tie on. So
he's more or less fully dressed.
Yes, it is one of the only like unfortunate sort of like 1980s sexism.
That was Joel Silver, where he's like, you know, have you ever do you watch? Have you seen True Romance?
No.
True Romance is great, and there's a film character in it who is basically a parody of Joel Silver.
Right.
And Tony Scott, the director, rest in peace, wonderful director, Top Gun, lots of things. And he directed True Romance, and he hated Joel Silver. And the guy who played the character in, like, Joel Silver was the typical coked up, second to Don Simpson, like the absolute coked up.
Right.
We're gonna put these movies are gonna be incredible, and he did that. And Tony Scott, sorry, they were directing the first scene, and he was really manic. And he came up after and he said, "That was perfect. That was just like Joel." And he said, and the actor said, "Who's Joel?" And he said, "It doesn't matter." Right. What's the change? Sort of just probing questions. They sent a limo just for John.
Yeah,
She's like the wife. She's like the second in command.
I suppose it just shows the prestige of the Nakatomi Corporation.
How long was the party supposed to be and last? John gets there. I know she's like angry and she's like, "Did John call? Is he coming?" But like the party's already started. It's like 6 o'clock. Have they just started drinking? And also, bigger thing that ties into this. The idea of a Christmas Eve party.
Absolutely nobody would attend the party on Christmas Eve. When does the sun set in Los Angeles in December on Christmas Eve? Because that sun, he's there for a while, and then immediately the sun sets. You see the sunsetting scenes actually when he's like calling the police initially.
Yeah.
Once again, it's a very well made film, but we can track the timeline of how long he's in there by essentially going from that start. Nobody would want to be at that party, let alone like a pregnant lady. You know, you'd surely want to get home to her doting like baby father.
Maybe Takagi's an arsehole. And it's like, I've got to go to the party. I'm sorry, darling. I've got to go to the party. You know how Takagi can be. If we don't come, then I don't get the promotion and stuff. And like, because he seems lovely, but
in fact, everyone's there. Like Ellis, what was Ellis meant to be doing on Christmas Eve?
He wanted a hot date with Holly. He was like,
with Holly
after the party, do you want it? And she's like, also, great film, perfect film. But Holly's list of like Christmas things, and she's like, it's Christmas Eve, don't you know? Rudolph, elves, and she goes on for like presumably, I didn't time it, but like 20 minutes listing Christmas things. And she's like, Rudolph, elves, ringing bells, jingle bells, Santa. And she's like, okay, calm down, please.
And he's like, I'm thinking more a roaring fire.
Yeah. Mulled wine, some takeout. Was that? Sorry, some cheese, some aged brie, mulled wine, and a roaring fireplace. That sounds terrible.
And it's also not tantamount to like healthy sex. Nobody should be eating cheese before sex.
Also, mulled wine from where? He's making the mulled wine at the house. He's like, oh yeah, let's screw. But also, I'm also gonna have to do that thing that everybody does once a year, where it's like, yeah, let's make some mulled wine, and you have to figure out the right saucepan temperature and all that shit. I have here what you already mentioned. They're the only ones left in the building. What? So WM Clay. What is John trying to figure out? To figure out if there is a Bill Clay in the office. A, why did the set designers choose W? Because Bill can just be William.
Yeah.
Why? And also, that's the Nakatomi listing. Nobody like. I just don't buy it. I love the conceit, but I think it's a weird choice because there's so many like things of like, why WM? Because Bill can just be William, and then the matter of like, yeah, like. That's all the people that work for Nakatomi on that list.
And it's also a section where you start to lose it because it's never definitively clear whether John's looking at it or whether Hans is looking at it or whether they're both remembering it.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because it provokes these questions, I guess. I have a real issue. And I mean, it's great for the plot and it's a perfect thing once we're in that final half an hour, everything's building and building. But the dickhead reporter from Ghostbusters going to the house, threatening the Mexican lady that he's going to rat her out to inland security, and then this is the last time these kids are ever going to speak. What do you want to say to your mom? What do you want to say to your dad? I mean, I don't know if in 1988 reporter what's it called?
Journalism.
Journalistic integrity was lower.
Yeah.
But like,
I think it was. I genuinely think it's
breaking into
once
their
again
house.
Yeah, I think it's a comment on journalistic integrity of the time, because I do
Mm.
genuinely think it was, and still is, abysmal. But yeah, I think
yeah.
at the time that is the type of thing that would have happened.
You're the sort of person where this joke will land. Whenever I describe somebody, I always try to mention a plummy voice based on Hugh Grant in the Levinson inquiry when like it was a huge thing about like they referenced that somebody had a plummy voice, and the only person that I know who has a plummy voice would be my secretary, and nobody has and he says plummy voice in like 20 times. We talked about I shot a kid and rooting for a cop to pick up their gun again.
Yeah.
We talked about Christmas movie bullshit. I don't like John blowing the gun after shooting hands at the end. And I know he's doing the cowboy thing, but it's like,
you're saving your wife.
Yeah, like just run to your wife.
Although it's the type of thing he would do. It's very McLean.
I don't have any other changes. Do you have any other changes? I mean, we've sort of touched on a lot of our stuff anyway.
Yeah, we've touched on a lot of them. I don't have any definitive changes because, my main one is the owl thing is really weird. The terrorist would be dead.
Well, I also, when we do Die Hard 2, I don't really have any changes for Die Hard 2. Really? I love Die Hard 2. Do you not like... Oh, sorry. Oh.
Yeah, no, it's a really good film. I just have a thing for Die Hard with a Vengeance because me and my dad used to watch it a lot when we were young.
Die Hard with a Vengeance has the ultimate edition of Sam Jackson as Zeus.
That is true. Samuel L. Jackson is...
That is like the all-time edition. But, I'm sorry, and Jeremy Irons is incredible. But just the waves through the tunnels and he's riding it doesn't do it for me. It doesn't do it for me. I'm sorry.
It does get a bit far-fetched, put it that way.
In a way, and like when they're on the boat and they're on the scaffold, every single time I watch the first half an hour, 40 minutes, I'm like, I forgot how much I love this. And then every single time it's the final 40 minutes and they're like both tied together on the boat and there's the explosions and there's the water through the tunnels and it's slightly bad CGI. And every time I'm like, oh yeah, no. And like Ava, who was possibly on this episode, loves Die Hard for everything. Hates Die Hard 2. And I'm like, why? And she's just like, I know.
That is so unfair.
It's so good.
I will say that With a Vengeance is a film that could do to be about 40 minutes shorter.
Oh yeah. Isn't Die Hard 3 shorter than this, but feels so much longer? Die Hard.
And it is. And that's mainly because
we're wrong. It's only 4 minutes shorter, so it's about the same length. Die Hard 2, on the other hand, is an exact tight 2 hours and feels like a goddamn train because it doesn't have any real 20 minutes of setup.
It's a pacing thing, isn't it? Fundamentally. It's when your pacing is off, as it is a little bit with Die Hard with a Vengeance, it means you feel like you're watching the same thing kind of over and over again. It's like, oh, it should have ended there. No, it should have ended there. Whereas with the first two, they feel like they reach natural conclusions.
Die Hard, for me, Die Hard is perfect. I go to bat saying Die Hard 2 is perfect. I really do. I think that moves like anything. I think it's incredible. And once you get over the conceit, I think my biggest problem with Die Hard 2 is that Holly is put in a very, very similar position of like, not damsel in distress, because as we've talked about with this film, but like she's put at a remove. Yes. And it makes sense plot-wise. I don't like the fact that the reporter's on there, but am I going to lie? No. Love it when he's like hacks into the thing and then Holly tases him. Love it. I'm not going to lie. But yeah, Die Hard 3 is where I go iffy. But what is unequivocal is that Die Hard is a Christmas movie. It is. Die Hard, and I don't want to bully somebody with aphasia, but like, why the hell did he end his roast saying, and one last thing, Die Hard is not a Christmas movie. I'm like, why, Bruce? What a
You didn't
stupid
need to
thing
do
to
that.
say. You
Yeah.
didn't need to do that.
So unnecessary, Bruce.
I think we've got 3 minutes now, and I want to talk about, because everybody knows that Alan Rickman's sensational. Bruce Willis is an incredibly good actor.
Yes.
This Sixth Sense, Death Becomes Her, he is absolutely hilarious. And that is like slapstick comedy. The fact that he can do slapstick comedy, do drama, full leading man, do Sixth Sense, where he is just like for the most part we think that it's a serious marriage drama, and he's got a failing marriage with what's her name? Her name is Emily. No, it's not. It's not Emily. It's not Leah. Can I have the initials?
You can, if I can find them.
She is
TC.
Her initials are TC. Oh, that's a joke. That's my initials.
No, her initials are. If I'm playing this right,
that's Tony Collette. That's Tony Collette. That's his mother. It's the other woman. It's definitely an E.
Or is it OW?
It's Olivia. It's Olivia Williams.
It is Olivia Williams.
Oh, I knew it. I didn't know it. That's not true. Oh, I love Olivia Williams. So good in Rushmore. But no, I love. When was the last time you watched Sixth Sense?
Ooh, not recently.
We have been plagued as a generation because, like, name the last really good. I think the last really good plot twist movie for our generation was what? Shutter Island.
Probably.
Before that, it's just
twists?
Famous twists that we already know through osmosis.
Yeah, because
I'm incredibly. Go on.
I got lucky with Fight Club in not knowing it my first watch.
I'm talking to a lady, and she mentioned the prospect that she's never seen Sixth Sense, and I'm like, oh, but you know what it is, and she's like, no.
And you were like, oh, it's my time.
And I said, oh my God, that's incredible. Bruce Willis is dead. Well, that was Die Hard. We will do another one in the new year, but that's not true. This will come out after that one because this is for Christmas, because this is a Christmas film. Today is currently the 30th of December. This will come out on the 4th or something of next December. So
2024.
So we're either dead, dying, or everything's okay. The woman I just mentioned will, like, most likely definitely no longer be in my life. That's just the way things go. And
the aim is I'll no longer be in your life, but that can't. I've been trying my hardest.
We'll all be in Die Hard the musical, and so much to look forward to. So much to look forward to. It's a wonderful thing.